Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Crunch. Thanks for tuning in. It's Rebecca here with Patrick. Yes, we're here to talk about the management challenges facing leaders today and some of the interesting tech things that are going on. Obviously, tech is moving really, really quickly. A lot of announcements this week from a lot of big vendors. We will be with the inimitable Brent Leary at Oracle AI World in just a few days' time. So look forward to chatting with him, and you probably hear from us there as well. Well, not Patrick, because he won't be there, but I'll be there. But today we're going to talk about sort of how the HR tech landscape is changing, the challenges for managers given the kind of pace of change, how we're thinking about HR leaders leveraging technology differently and thinking differently as they think about things like change management. And I'm really excited to have a great guest today who's CEO of a very interesting company that's really thinking about employee recognition, employee connection, and employee data in really, really interesting ways. So I'll welcome him to the show now, Scott.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And so, Scott, I gave you a little bit of an intro, but I certainly didn't do you justice. Maybe you can talk a little bit kind of about your background, but also about what Achievers does.
Sure. My name is Scott Landers, and I have the good fortune of leading this amazing company called Achievers. So just 30 seconds on my background. I've been in software for about 30 years, dating back to the mid-90s with a company called MapInfo in upstate New York. Spent over a decade there, spent over a decade leading a company called Monotype here in the Boston area where I live. And then I've been in HR tech for the last 4 years, originally with a company that tried to tackle the talent acquisition problem, and then found myself here at Achievers starting about 18 months ago. And it's by far the best place I've worked. No offense to any of my previous employers, because they've all set the bar really high, really high. But here at Achievers, we're the leader in the R&R space. We've been at it for over 20 years. One of our claims to fame is we've pioneered non-monetary recognition. We were the first ones to bring that to market. As I like to say to our company, we're really proud of the fact that we're a 1% company, meaning if you take all the SaaS companies in the world, those that are over 100 million, that are growing, profitable, global, with tier one customers and tier one investors, we fit in that small bucket. So I'm very honored to be able to lead this group of very passionate A players that we have. And what we're aiming to do is to change the way the world works. And as you know, Rebecca, the world around us is changing more than ever. So that's a pretty heavy lift for us and our customers, and we have the great pleasure of trying to lead them through that. But in a snapshot, in kind of layman's terms, what we do, as I like to say, we allow the doers to be seen, we help cultures align, and we enable businesses to perform. And we're really proud of the work that we do.
That's a great way to kind of frame out the value proposition, because I think we saw, Scott, a lot of investment go into R&R companies and into social recognition and that sort of thing during COVID as sort of an excuse for not having people in the office, or maybe budgets that went into it that normally would have gone toward connecting people in the office. But there was sort of a peak, I think, maybe a year or two ago, where we talked about non-monetary recognition as sort of the adult participation trophy for doing work. And I think that turned some of the sort of financial decision makers off, because maybe HR wasn't necessarily positioning it the right way. And I like the way that you talk about recognition as a connector. Maybe you can talk a little bit more kind of about how you think about that in the real management context, not just in the HR context.
Yeah. I mean, if you step back, it is so much more than a thank you program, right? But let's just start with the basics of how we work. I mean, when I got started in 1992, my colleagues were right around me in cubicles, right? My boss was in the office next door. There was constant feedback, there was constant reinforcement, and you absorb so much, just by observing. As you know, the world has changed. I have 2 children. It's very expensive out there, 4 children, but 2 that live at home, right, that are employed. It's very expensive to move out, but I think they're getting close. But if I think about how they work, they have an office to go to, but their team's in another city,
Mm-hmm.
and their boss is in another city, from there. So when you talk about enabling doers to be seen, that really matters. And that's not just thank you, right? What you're recognizing them for is who they are and how they behave and how they contribute to the whole, right? And that is all about connection, right? And the beauty of recognition, the way that it can be done today, is that everybody can then see it. Me being recognized in front of 600 people, or somebody at an organization of 20,000 being recognized publicly, that's a lot different than just receiving the pat on the back, right, or the email. And it really fosters connection and belonging. But really, if you think about recognition, it is absolutely a change agent for organizations, because we're a sum of the parts, right? We're technology and human, and even with all the themes coming around AI, we're still going to be a combination of technology and humans. And it's how we behave, how those behaviors align to the company's strategy and its goals. And now down the road, how skills play a big part in that, and how those can be identified and reinforced, because that which we recognize will ultimately get repeated. And so we look at this as an absolute change agent within the organization. And if you can give me 60 more seconds, I'll give you one example from the CEO perspective. When I joined Achievers, there was so much, I won't even call it good there. There was so much great there. But we had an opportunity, given now our scale, where we needed to push decision-making down, accountability down. And we struggled with that a little bit, right? Because when companies just get started, they're used to looking up, like, what do we do next? And so we really leaned into one of our core values around being bold. And we ran a whole campaign around that. And we celebrated people who were taking the risk or had the courage to go and make the decision, do that thing. Because those folks that do the work every day, they're the ones closest to your internal and external customers. They're closest to the ground truth. Mm-hmm. We ended up seeing a 40% lift in that value from a recognition perspective, which meant that those behaviors were seen. And when you know it, we saw a 2x improvement in our revenue performance for the year. And so that's just one small example from one little company, here in Toronto, and what it can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a really great point. And I want to dig in a little bit deeper on skills, but I want to follow kind of this thread for a minute. You talk about sort of setting management objectives, but a lot of managers today are not equipped to manage in this kind of remote world, or even equipped to manage at all, right? We promote top performers to be managers. We don't necessarily give them management training or management skills. Can you talk a little bit about how Achievers helps with that, and some of the kind of technology investments that you guys have made to really help elevate managers up their game?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, and I'll even take what you talked about and bring it up even maybe one level higher. I think one of the biggest struggles today for managers in managing is we're in a world that is very ambiguous right now. So you and I, for years, right? I was just talking to someone the other day, and I said, for the first 25 years of my career, you could come up with a 3-year plan.
Right.
And that plan would be pretty sound. Every 6 to 12 months, you would check in. There'd be a slight pivot, right? You'd be going direction, but you wouldn't want to go more than 3 years, because then things changed really, really quickly. We're living in a world now where it seems like over the last 5 years, every 3 to 5 months, the world has got a huge speed bump put in front of us as we go and tackle our plans, or there may be a swift stop and then a restart in a completely different environment. And so I think one of the struggles for managers is that even that 12-month plan today needs to be rewritten in some cases every 1 to 2 quarters, right? Which creates a real problem. Now, the beauty of recognition that we love from a performance management perspective or behavior driver, there you're able to recognize those behaviors every single day. And through unique campaigns that we can provide from the know-how that we have across our hundreds of clients and 1 billion data points across all the geographies and industries, we're able to tee up different campaigns that they can use for the moment. So you within your organization can say, if over the next 6 months, we need to get our folks to help embrace AI and determine those new skills, you can run a campaign around that and you'll see instant behavior change within your org. But you have to critically think as a manager, what is it that we need to do differently here over the next 3 to 6 months? So from a technology perspective, from the platform, all of your employees are in it, right? You can define what those key things are, whether they're values, whether they're key objectives, whether they're skills, and show its importance in the platform, and then align folks to that. And then the technology makes it really easy to see where you're doing well and which groups are maybe lagging behind. And the beauty of that and the connection point is those companies that do it well, the employees are engaged, they stay longer, and they perform better. Mm-hmm. And so companies that use our technology at scale can see a real improvement in their business, regardless of what the outside world is doing.
I love that you talk about them as campaigns, because I've focused on both the CX and CRM space and the sort of HR and employee experience space. And I think we've historically seen HR, HCM, about 24, 36 months behind CX, right? CX went cloud first, it went embedded analytics first, but it feels like we're at this really interesting moment right now where AI is sort of creating that kind of big change that is almost a leapfrog opportunity for some of the HR technology. And so you're talking about campaigns almost like I would think about a marketing campaign.
That's right.
In the CRM or marketing automation space, but you're very much applying it to the individual employee and what is maybe a very personalized journey for each of those employees.
It absolutely is. And if you look at, what the expectation is and what the skills or behaviors required of roles across the entire organization today with AI, they're all being turned upside down, right? And what I would love to see, and I think HR needs to be the tip of the spear here, is that we need to start putting the human element of this in the conversation first. You and I could go do a Google search, or we could go turn on the business news, and we'll hear all about AI, all about the great things it can do to move companies forward, to improve efficiency. But we got to start focusing on the people element of this, because we are still going to need an awful lot of people on this planet. And but the skills that they use, and where the exciting part is I think, if you take entry-level roles, the opportunity for them to be more strategic, be more involved in connecting the dots out the gate early in career is going to be an opportunity like no other. And they're absolutely capable of doing it, right? It's just that the system before, like when I got started in public accounting, I went and audited cash bank statements for a year, right? But I was capable.
You learn the ropes, right?
Because that's how you learn the ropes, and then the rest you kind of, the knowledge seeped in over time. Young people have the opportunity to leapfrog, right, and learn and apply those bright minds at such a different level. And I think what we need to do, because there's a whole conversation we could have for an hour on how disengaged people are, right, and all the negative consequences from everything you hear on one side of this equation. But the flip to that is there could be an opportunity like no other, but we got to start giving them the path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to engage people where they are and help them understand what that role looks like for them in the future, whether they're entry-level folks or more mature folks like you and I think there's got to be a path there. But one of the studies that we did last year, Scott, looked at sort of, does HR have a good skills inventory to be able to understand how to offer those personalized paths to employees? And what we found was really only about 1 in 10 companies really feel like they have the skills data in a meaningful way, meaning it's integrated, current, correct,
right,
to really be able to kind of optimize workforce planning for AI. And I know some of the vision there around what you're doing is having those kind of data points around skills that are being captured every day and not just in performance reviews and that sort of thing. But maybe can you talk a little bit more about what the vision is for Achievers and sort of how your data can help with that problem?
Yeah. So we're sitting on an awful lot of data. And if you think about recognition conceptually, it's not just the behavior, you're actually recognizing the outcome, right? It's so what behaviors and what skills did I use to drive this outcome? That's what is getting celebrated. So within that same platform where I can identify the folks who, are being bold or acting as one team, I can also identify those folks who are amazing at collaboration or have got great resilience or great specific hard skills, right? Or even doing it. One of our customers did a whole campaign around the adoption of AI, right? So they were able to identify those people across a very large telecommunications organization who could lean in, embrace, be the pilot folks within that org. I think I've listened to some of your stuff where you call it "do it yourself" and the fear of messing up, right? Where those folks can go in and almost lead the path, right, for maybe the 500 others in their organization and begin to trial and understand what those skills may be. All of those are readily identifiable within the data set, within the recognition system. Now imagine if you can then take that data, which we can, right, push it back into other systems where that skills taxonomy lives, right? If it could be married with L&D programs, right? And now all of a sudden, this pathway we're talking about, if you can start with the overarching first message of us telling our employees that they matter and that there's going to be a meaningful role for them in the future, actually help them co-create and identify who better to identify how the role of an entry-level accountant, in that example I gave for myself 30-something years ago, who better to identify what skills are going to be able to be leveraged, what skills are going to be replaced, and the new skills that can be brought to the table for that role than those that are doing it today. A recognition system allows you to identify that in a moment, push it back into all those core data sets that we have, and then begin to provide that path over time. And I think now is the time, that 10% number you talked about is scary. What we aim to do is our part, right? And then have seamless integrations with the other technology systems that sit around us to put really powerful data at the fingertips of our customers.
So I want to push back on that a little bit, mostly because we had a long conversation, or I did in my session at Unleash a couple of weeks ago, about skills and about sort of reported skills versus assessed skills versus manager or peer-reviewed skills. And certainly we're talking about the latter if we talk about sort of the rewards and recognition piece. It's managers and peers commenting on skills and achievement. The pushback from HR was employees would game the system, or that data really needed to be validated in ways that simple recognition couldn't apply. Is there a master data management piece we need to start thinking about?
Yeah, I don't know if I can give you the technical answer to that. That may be above my pay grade, but I can tell you, like this whole gaming the system, our technology is able to identify that.
Okay.
Right? Where those abnormalities or anomalies lie in the data, and we would be able to do the same thing through with skills. But if you go to what you first talked about on peer validated skills, I remember my father said it was actually a good life lesson. I think it may have been around Little League baseball. I always loved playing baseball. And he said, if you're good, you don't need to tell anyone. Because if you're truly good at something, other people will do the talking for you. Right? And if you think about this whole notion of peer validated skills, it is probably the most important piece of data that you can get your hands on. It's the ground truth. It's not only what someone is capable of, perhaps with a degree or the fabric of who they are, it's actually what shows up in the moment, at work, in the environment where that skill or behavior needs to shine, right? It's the difference between who are we on paper and how do we show up in real life. So the combination of those two, right? And you make a great point. We have to make sure that things aren't gamed and folks aren't just recognizing each other. But that kind of stuff, just like with all technology, fraud detection, if you will, is just about everywhere, and it'll be no different here. But what I love is the concept of marrying now, because of technology and how it's advanced, all these different data sets to allow companies to make the best decisions, because their worlds are changing so quickly. And as you know, there's not a lot of talent everywhere just to plug these holes, right? So a lot of times it's the internal mobility challenge that needs to be solved. And where are those hidden skills in your organization so that you can assemble, right, the perfect team for the moment. And then even more so for that individual development plan, showing them the path. And that last piece, I think, is a bit of a concern for me as a parent. When we say bring our whole self to work, so I'm going to go off script here, not that we had one, but when I come to work, I'm thinking of the shareholders, the customers, the employees. I'm thinking of my team, but I can't help when this parent thing comes in. And you and I, in our careers, had a pretty good path. And even though technology came and went, that path was pretty sound. We have an obligation to provide a path for these young folks so they can be just as excited as we were as we entered the working world. And they can believe just as much as we did that they can do better than the generation before, right? There's an element of soul and inspiration here that I think we as HR leaders, we doing our part here at Achievers, can bring back in and actually even have a much greater impact on society, because there's something missing right now. If you talk to 18-year-olds, if you talk to 22-year-olds, they don't have the same view that perhaps you and I did.
Of the opportunities for themselves.
Of the opportunities, right? It's very much the haves and have-nots. If you sit in the sweet spot, right, of some of these emerging technologies, it feels one way. If you're in 80% of the jobs that people get on TV and say are going to go away, you think something very different. Now, you and I know that's probably not the end state here, but let's give them the path.
And you said it's probably going to change in a couple of months. So
that's right.
We've got to have some continuity coming from other sources, I guess, to keep optimistic on things like that. So from an achiever's perspective, what do you think are the top things that HR leaders should be thinking about in the next 3 months before things move? What are the things that you're telling them to kind of prioritize as they think about all the different things that's on HR's plate right now?
Yeah, I think we can't lose sight of the core. And the core around engagement and retention, engagement scores, if you look at the survey results, they're the lowest they've been in a long time. And trust is very low in just about all things. So the first thing I would say to them is don't lose sight of your people at the time where you need them the most. So I would double down on the core. And as we look at the world, right, the first layer, kind of this system of engagement, is just step one. Let's fortify that core and make people make sure those doers are seen. I then think, because of all that's going on in the world, and to flip this to the opportunity and the optimistic side, how do they take the next step in maturity to get into the system of intelligence, right? I think I mentioned before, we're sitting on 1 billion data points. We're coming out with a whole host of new product offerings that are going to be able to allow our customers, through just natural language query, to understand their business at a much deeper level and find the areas that need more attention. And then lastly, I would encourage them, with things changing so quickly, is to focus in on those behaviors. Not that you need 18 to 24 months from now, but what does your organization need in the next 6 months? And how do you best influence those behaviors so that when you look at your own competitive positioning in your industry, you're sitting on top, when this wave is much clearer on what it will mean 2 years from now. I think we got to take that 2-3 year planning cycle down to 6 months. And that's where using something like recognition, we believe we're a must-have, right? This isn't an attaboy pat on the back. If you want to change and influence the behaviors to get your organization where it needs to go, which all comes down to connecting all those threads from the very beginning to I belong, to how do I need to behave, to what are those different skills, right, that need to be developed and modified to get that outcome. We think there's lots of great work to be done. And we're so proud, like a lot of the innovation we do, we're co-developing with our customers, right? Because we've been around for 22 years. We've got a whole bunch of new customers that we call it the crawl, walk, run, right? They're just getting in, they're taking care of the core, but we've got 10, 15 year customers that are way up on that, that influence journey.
That's great. I love having the doers be seen. I think that's a really important metaphor as we think about, broadly, not just engagement, but recognition and the technology that enables you to do that at scale. We've only got a few minutes left, so it's crunch time.
Uh-oh.
Crunch time, the time when I ask Patrick's questions. Scott, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Not too hard today, right?
Do I get to phone a friend at any point of this? I'm not quite sure what's coming right now, but I'm going to turn myself over to the process.
We'll take it easy on him today, right, Pete? Yeah. Okay. What talent would you most like to have?
I think so I played a little bit of sports. Most athletes want to be musicians. Most musicians want to be athletes. I would love it if I was a musician, right? Because that is a lifelong sport. If I could play the guitar and sing at family outings, I think that would make me a very happy man into retirement.
And see, I'm a musician, and I wish I were more athletic. So there you go.
There you go. We make the perfect team.
That's perfect. Who's your favorite fictional hero?
Fictional. This is gonna sound crazy, but I'm a sucker for like inspiration in movies, and this was recorded and it's live, so I'm totally screwed. I love Jerry Maguire. It sounds crazy.
Somehow, given your background, that doesn't surprise me.
I love being inspired on what is a new way of looking at something, or how do we do something that we didn't think could be done, and how do you get people rallied around that? I could watch the first 5 minutes of that movie over and over again.
I have to tell you, that is an answer to that question I have never heard before.
There's no right or wrong answers.
But it's on brand. It's on brand.
It's on brand.
Perfect. And finally, if you could come back as any person or thing, what or whom would you be?
I would be Patrick.
That's a pretty good answer, you think?
I never owned a dog as a kid. And we got 2 dogs about 10 years ago. And they're such a beautiful creature, right? How they give and accept love is just so different and so pure, right? They're happy to be with us because, one of the things I struggle with is living in the moment, and there's no other place Patrick would rather be than where he is right now. So I think that is the secret to life, is to live like a dog every now and again.
What do you think, bud? Good? Yeah. Okay. Excellent, Scott. That's time for us to wrap for today. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us and sharing your insights with us. And Patrick, really liked your last answer as well. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you soon on The Crunch.
Scott left.
Okay. You must have somewhere to go.
All right. I guess I'll see you maybe tomorrow. I don't know when you're getting up there, but
yeah. What are you doing tomorrow?
Flying up to New York.
Well, yes.
And who knows how that'll go. So I don't know. Did they have anything going on in the evening?
Not that I know of. I was going to send Kim a note, but text me if I imagine I'll just be around the hotel. I've got a call. I'm I'm taking the train in the morning because I've got calls I got to do in the afternoon. So I wanted to be somewhere solid. Yeah, let me know when you get in. And if you want to do something on Thursday.
Well, I know the keynote. We're doing the watch party. That's at 9. I think that's 9.
I think it's 9. Oh, do you want me to do that with you?
Yeah, sure. Paul's not gonna be there, but he'll be doing it virtually.
Are you going to do it from your hotel room or from the media room?
I'm gonna check out, see what it looks like there.
Okay.
But if it's, it's so much easier to just do it from the room. But Kim said there might be an area, so I'll check it out.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to send her a note today. I'm going to try to do a recording with Chris.
Oh, cool. Yeah, she mentioned that. I think she said she got you a time and a space or something.
Yeah, I know. I know I have space. I'm experimenting with.
This is really intriguing here.
Well, I'm trying to up my sound game a little bit, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Did you get some like lav mics or something?
Yeah, I got the new Rode Labs.
Okay, cool. They're good.
So I'm going to try and see how that works.
But
and
if you want me to, I don't know I haven't looked at my schedule yet, but I mean, I'd be glad to help out if I'm available.
I will let you know when it is, because just as an emotional support, it might be helpful.
I will be there if I can.
All right, cool. Safe travels. Thank you for doing this today.
All right. Oh yeah, and let's just take a few minutes, and I'll walk you through how you can do this on your own.
Yes.
All righty.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.